Hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to Center Court. We're going to explore the MBA experience at Michigan Ross. We have with us today Diana Economy, one of my favorite people in admissions. She's director of the full-time MBA program. And we have two alums from 2020, Guy Ruggiero, who is also has a master's in human computer action. He's a senior product manager at Amazon. And Madeline Kanmark, who also has an MS in environment and sustainability and is an associate at McKinsey. Welcome, everybody. Wow, you two alums really went through it. I mean, getting 2 degrees instead of just 1. That had to be a pretty grueling experience, was it, Guy?
It was a lot of classes. Regular MBA is a 2-year program, right? And our programs are a 3-year thing. But it was very fun as well, and more time in Ann Arbor, so can't complain.
Madeline, same point of view?
Yeah, I was just trying to find excuses not to leave.
I don't blame you. I mean, I think most people who have a great graduate experience regret walking across the stage and receiving their diploma. It's bittersweet because these experiences are so formative and so transformative that it's hard to leave them and all the friends that you make in them. Diana, what sets Michigan Ross apart? What makes that experience so magical for so many people?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. And actually, Madeline and Guy have hit on one of the big ones. We have over 20 dual degree offerings, more than any of the other top programs. And that really allows our students to have some flexibility to explore a variety of options. So Madeline with sustainability and Guy with School of Information and human, centered design, but law, policy, you name it. And what's nice as a Michigan Ross student, you can either do a full dual degree or you can take a few classes outside of Ross. And so that opportunity to kind of dabble in these other passion areas or areas of interest to supplement your MBA coursework, I think is real differentiator. But I think probably what we're most known for is learning by doing. So if you learn best by doing, this is the place to be. A ton of hands-on learning experiences that have been the hallmark of our program for many years. And one is MAP. So Multidisciplinary Action Project, or MAP, is the last 7 weeks of your first year. Rather than being in the classroom, you're going to be on a consulting-like engagement with organizations all over the world. It is incredible. It is a really in-depth experience that's the only thing you're doing during those 7 weeks. You have no other courses, full-time focuses on MAP. And for many of our students, over 90% who are career switchers, MAP is really a game changer because it's like a second internship. And although these two actually had second internships, real internships, because they were dual degree students, they both did MAP as well.
In fact, Madeline, you remember your MAP project?
I do. I was working with AT&T, and it was such a wild ride because I can get into it a little bit more later, but I had no background in business. I had never worked for any type of corporate company, and I just dove straight into AT&T at their giant campus in Texas, and it was such an amazing experience just to throw myself into.
Guy, what about you?
Oh boy, mine was on a startup in LA, and fun fact, I actually ended up interning. My internship was there my first year, so it was a very, very interesting opportunity there, and very glad I did it.
And I should point out, Michigan Ross has been a pioneer in experiential learning, was one of the first school to actually do this in any meaningful way. And even today, it's one of the rare schools that literally interrupt the academic calendar and say, hey, this is so important, it's going to be a full-time activity for the students involved in it. 7 weeks, you're going to throw everything you have into this, and you're not going to go to traditional classes and get interrupted. That's the kind of relevance the school puts on experiential learning and project-based doing. And Diane, another key part of this is all the student managed funds at Michigan Ross. I don't think there's another school in the world that has as many as Ross does. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. We have more student-led venture capital funds than any other school. And you're talking about traditional venture capital, focus. You're talking about early stage startups. You're talking about impact investing. We have an international investment fund that's looking to invest in small and medium enterprises globally. And we actually have a new fund that's focused on green investments. So it's called Michigan Climate Venture, and it's the first of its kind clean tech investment fund. So the investment funds are incredible. And, one of the things I saw this summer is we had a ton of students interning in venture capital this summer, many more than I'd seen. We're seeing a growing interest there. And I think a lot of the students on the funds are really gaining some valuable experience. And some are really saying, this is exactly what I want to do right after school, and really, really going after it immediately versus maybe waiting a few years to move into that space.
The other thing that really has impressed me about Ross is the continuous improvement nature of the program. We named the Ross MBA the MBA Program of the Year last year, in fact, because of it, because it's almost like every other month you're doing something new and different and kind of cool. And it boggles the mind that you can do so many things. It reminds me, and this is going to date me, of the Ed Sullivan Show. And the guy on the stage who would run from one plate to another, keeping them on top of these poles. This is what reminds me of those days back when I was watching the Ed Sullivan Show as a kid, laying on the floor in front of a small TV set. You're always doing stuff. It's remarkable. I don't know how you do it. How do you do it?
It's really part of our DNA. And I'll tell you, it's even part of what we look for in students, which is to say, when you're doing learning by doing, you're intentionally putting yourself in a new environment. Madeline mentioned that she comes from, private sector or public sector space and was working in a private sector, environment. And, these are brand new experiences that students are jumping into. And even in our admissions process, we look for times that you've been challenged, times that you've been outside of your comfort zone, because that adaptability is so critical to your development as a student, but also to what employers are going to be looking for in a few years. Our students right now are going to be graduating into jobs in a year or two that don't exist today, right? They're going to have evolved from the iteration that they are right now. And we have to train our students to evolve, which means we as a school have to evolve. And I think we have an administration that really values that and partners with us to allow for those changes to happen. And I would say we also have a very student-centric culture where we partner with the students to get new things out there. Like my classmates who over my MAP project said, we really want to put together the first of its kind impact investing fund. And they did, right? We were in MAP in India, walking around talking about the social venture fund. And during their time there, they partnered with the administration to launch it. So this really is a co-create environment for sure. And something that's core to who we are.
Yeah. And in addition to the dual degree options, which, as you noted, are many, the MBA program itself has quite a few concentrations. So there's a lot of flexibility within the MBA program to pursue your own passions.
Yeah, right. So, when you think about the MBA over the course of the 2 years, so you're going to take your core classes in your first year leading up to MAP. And those core classes, about 60% of the time are going to be taught using case method. We like case method. We just don't like it 100% of the time because it allows our faculty flexibility to teach that course on that day in the way that's going to make most sense to get that material across. And where possible, we look to have faculty engage hands-on learning. Let's practice the skills that you're learning real time in a safe environment, potentially fail, learn from your mistakes, and build. That leads to MAP, which you have an incredible choice on MAP. So when you think about specializations and concentrations, how about here's 100 projects, you pick which ones you're most interested in, right? And you're going to be spending a full 7 weeks at a startup with a healthcare organization, with an NGO all over the world. And there's a good amount of travel involved there too. So I would say that's the first element of like choice and specialization for sure is MAP. But in your second year, it's really entirely electives. And entirely up to you to choose that course. We give you guidance to say, if you want to go into these career paths, here's some courses you might want to take, but you get to pick the path that makes most sense for you at Ross or outside of Ross to be able to build and focus. So I would say healthcare is a really strong focus area that we see students going into. I would say venture capital has been really popular as well. And then of course, data and analytics, that's a staple of everything that's happening right now. But there are some specializations and concentrations for those that really want to deep dive into that space.
Now, Madeline, Diana mentioned that you had a public interest background, which makes you, on some level, a non-traditional MBA. Tell me what led you to pursue the degree in the first place?
Yeah, I came from about as non-traditional as they come, although like such a weird statement these days, because I would say in my class at Ross, I don't know any like that many people that came from traditional backgrounds. Like everyone was coming from all over the place, but I came from working in community organizing to then working in public policy and research about pollinator decline. So nothing to do with business in any way. And I was so nervous thinking about an MBA. I'd never even been in the business school of my undergraduate degree. And so when I was looking into the program, I think one of the things that really spoke to me was the idea that I could be doing this interdisciplinary degree where I could be at both schools, really challenging my perspective. And the thing about an MBA, not that I kind of figured out as I went along, was it doesn't really matter if you're that interested in finance or accounting. It's about leadership and it's about management, and you can apply that pretty much anywhere, going into any career. And so I think that's sort of what drew me. I loved the energy of the women I met in the MBA program, particularly at Ross, and I just really felt like I could accelerate my passions and my interests and make real impact.
Ah, so well said. Now, Madeline, many people who come from backgrounds such as yours think that MBAs are kind of masters of the universe who strut and stroll down the hallway with sharp elbows. Did you go in with those perceptions?
Oh yeah, really bad. I came in with my fists up. I wanted nothing to do with any part of it. I was like, I'm starting at the school for the environment. That's where good people are. These MBAs are going to be jerks. I really did not feel like I was going to find my people and my place.
And you did. And
I did. I was obsessed with Ross. I'm on this call right now. I will do anything for Ross. I met my best friends that I've made in my life at Ross. I've met my partner at Ross. Like, it really is like the place that just made me feel the most myself that I had ever been. And I don't know about a lot of people on this call, but if you're sort of in your career in your 20s being like, what am I doing? It's just an incredible experience to sort of go in. You're really investing in yourself, going to Ann Arbor, going to that smaller town, and just being able to focus on like, who am I? Who do I want to be? And where do I want to be going? And at least for me, that was just a transformative experience outside of like, learning some things about accounting.
Guy, what led you to pursue an MBA and what was your background?
Yeah, I'm an engineering undergrad, so I didn't actually have a lot of business education, formal business education. I guess you can say that. And although I never worked with engineering, I was always already working with business. I felt that need to like have a formal education on that. Also, I was already working in technology, so I was like, well, where else to go if not try to go to the US to work in tech there. And then looking for schools, I really wanted a place that one would foster my learning within technology, that the community liked technology, a good portion of the students went into technology, and therefore a lot of alumni were in technology, right? So that narrowed down a lot the potential places. And then when you look beyond the school, and then they understand that it's actually a place that you're going to live for 2 or 3, in our case 3 years, but a place that you're going to live, people that you surround yourself with, right? I think you look also a little bit beyond the classroom and the coursework, and that led me to Ann Arbor. I'm extremely passionate about Ann Arbor as well. Like every time I say this, I get the feedback on the cold thing. I'm from Brazil, man. Like I live there and I love living there. Like you can't get any different than that, right? As far as weather goes. So I love living there. Just like Madeline, I also met my girlfriend there, my partner there. One of most of my best friends I met there, lived there together in a house, shared a house together. So just an amazing experience, right? That's what I want to have after I leave, and I remember so fondly looking back into those years. So yeah, that's why I decided to Ross.
Diana, I love this because we have in the house a poet and a quant. So Guy is our quant with his engineering background, and Madeline with her public interest background is clearly a poet. And Diana, can you speak to actually how the diversity of the students on every level, from geography to work experience to gender to racial backgrounds, contributes to the Ross culture?
Yes, John, this is also just so core to what happens with our community, how this community comes together. I mean, you look at top MBA programs, and of course, they're going to be, really diverse. You're going to have classmates from all over the world. But I think what really sets Michigan Ross apart is the authenticity that our students bring. You heard these two saying they really felt like they could thrive there. They could be themselves there. They were challenged and inspired by the other people who were around them. And that's what we're looking for, too. As an alum, it might be the thing that makes me the most proud to see is when a new class comes in and they have an energy right away that reminds me of my own class. Right, that energy just kind of continues through these years, and we do a lot to cultivate it while we're at Ross. I mean, I love our Food Friends and Culture event where a different group is going to speak about their culture to their classmates, or our tons of speaking events like Story Lab or OutX or VetX, or our Asian American Student Story Lab where they're sharing their stories. And then similarly, when you take a look at the leadership and the representation, our last 10 student body presidents have come from the consortium. So students of color from the US, our leaders of our clubs, the most prominent clubs, women over index in the leadership roles of our clubs. So those are some of the markers that I look to see, how students are doing in this experience. And I think people leave and they don't just check the box and say that was a good experience. They leave and they were like, I loved that experience and I can't wait to give back. And that passion is really at the core of what this community is all about.
Great. Now, Guy, you're at Amazon as a senior product manager. And I wondered when you entered the program, was Amazon a goal of yours? And then how the school helped support you through an internship and job search process that led you to the company?
It was a goal. I was that set in becoming a senior PM at Amazon or Google, and I'm very, very happy and feel very fortunate to be able to accomplish that, right? The school has a lot of resources that help you. In my case, I think I'll point out the FEC group at ACT. It's basically an accountability group led by an MBA 2, so an upper class person, but with a lot of backbone there and help from the CDO, the Career Development Office. And I think the CDO helps a lot. Obviously, a lot of resources, people dedicated even to international students, right? Which is the recruiting is a little bit different. You need to narrow down the companies you look for, you recruit for. But as of all the resources, I'll point out that because one, you're with your peers, so it's a group of MBA ones recruiting together. So there's a lot of camaraderie and helping out each other. And mind you, they're all recruiting for the same position, so for the same industry, right? So I think it tells a little bit about helping everyone, despite they are a competition there, right? So there's some help there. It's led by the MBA 2 that already recruited for that. And so they know the ins and outs from the student perspective. So that's extremely helpful. And it guides you all the way. So I think the very first week or second week, you'll have your first meeting, and it goes until the very last one. Like I got my first internship pretty late in the game, and I was having meetings up until then. My FEC group leader also is at Amazon. He's a senior product manager at Amazon. When I got my full-time interview, she helped me. So that connection that the FEC group establishes is just so insanely awesome. That helps so much. And I don't remember hearing from friends elsewhere that they had that, right? Maybe unofficially, but having that officially is just such a great help, especially if you're coming from a different country with a completely different culture.
Right.
It's just so different, right? So that was insanely awesome. Now, second thing is the alumni network, right? Like this, it was just so great to count on a number of people that went through what I did in Michigan, and then after when I was recruiting, this was great. I'm a dual degree, so the people that graduated with my MBA class were working for a year when I was, or a little bit less than a year when I was recruiting. So I got to get in touch with them and say, hey, remember that year that we had? So now help me, help me with recruiting. So That was also great. But alumni, you can see how they help in the recruiting journey, and it's just fascinating to be in this. And now it's my time to help. So it's been amazing.
And Madeline, I'm imagining that when you first packed your bags to go off to Ann Arbor, the last place you imagined working was McKinsey as a consultant. Am I right?
I had never heard of McKinsey and Company, and I had never heard of management consulting when I started. I remember my first day at GBR, which is our celebration weekend for accepted students. I was talking to someone, and he was like, I work at a company called Deloitte. And I was like, what do they do? And he was trying to explain it to me, and I was like, so you just get paid to make PowerPoints? Like, I'm confused what your job is exactly. So yeah, to say it was a weird journey, I never thought I would end up there. But really, it's sort of what Diana was speaking to earlier. The opportunity at Ross, when I came in, I'd only had about 2 years of work experience in really small organizations. And so what I did at Ross during my dual degree is I just stacked my resume with experiences. I was able to say, okay, how do I translate what I have done? Where do I see the gaps in what the sort of messaging is on where it might look like I haven't had those experiences, and how can I get those experiences? So I did MAP through SEAS, which is the School for the Environment. We have something very similar to MAP. We do a master's project where we work with a company for a year. I did Community Consulting Club, where I worked with organizations over time. Detroit R&B. We have so many opportunities that if you're like, I kind of want to test this out and add something to my resume, and I talked about those things in my interview. As real experiences that I had, and that was really helpful as I did the journey.
How did the school support and prepare you for your internship and then your ultimate job search?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the big one is all of those different opportunities. And then also, I mean, the FAC group is great, as Guy pointed out, but I think when I was looking at schools, I knew the number one thing I wanted was to feel like I could be myself, and feel like I didn't have to be nervous around my classmates and be in this competitive environment where I would sound like maybe I was dumb or I didn't know certain things. I knew I was bringing value to the table. It just wasn't traditional value. And so I'm the first one to say I'm the world's worst person at mental math. And so many of my friends have cased me and been like, Madeline, you really should have gotten that one. That was a little embarrassing, but we're here together and we're going to get through it. And so it was having that type of support system. And then the other thing that I think for anyone out there who's excited about sustainability, the HERB program that I was a part of, it's not just a dual degree, it's an integrated dual degree, it's an endowed program. And we have, on top of how crazy Michigan Ross alumni are, Michigan alumni HERB people really stick together. And so having that alumni network to help me translate my story into a way that would make more sense was so critical.
Now, Diana, I see you beaming, and I completely understand why. Here you have two incredible ambassadors for your MBA program. And what they're saying, it totally resonates with you, right?
John, it brings me joy to just hear them, right? And to also see them, right? I remember meeting Madeline in DC before she started school. And I remember talking to Guy very early on, about their journey. And so it really is special for us as admissions officers to see people really do well in the program and then go on to do amazing things. And this following your passion piece is continues to be a theme, right? Where people come in and you have the opportunity to explore and really develop those through the number of hands-on experiences that we have. That's why we have so many career switchers, is that we have people who are able to work with our Business Plus Tech, where they're working on a tech hackathon, or we have people that are doing Ross Open Road this past month in May, where every week they're doing a road trip to work with a different social entrepreneur around the country. So all of these experiences, A plus B plus C plus D plus E, really gives the richness to this experience, and I think offers a really strong foundation regardless of what you choose to go into. And as you know, John, I mean, the number of times these folks are going to switch careers right over their lifetime. I mean, Guy and Madeline just graduated a few years ago, so they're just at their first job out of school, but this foundation is really instrumental for not just the first job, but for several jobs after. And I think that's what makes it really special.
Right. In fact, I want to ask both Guy and Madeline my favorite question, which is, years later, when you look back on your experience at Ross, what do you think will be the three things that most resonate with you? Madeline?
The most resonate with me? I mean, it's the people first, and it's so cliche. Every Ross person's going to say that, but like, I would do anything to go back to Ann Arbor and to be with the people that I was with, and in such a special environment. Diana spoke to it, but you're surrounded by so many international perspectives, so many people from all over the world, just your best friends, and you get to see them all the time. And that's such a rarity. And to be in that environment while you're also just trying to accelerate yourself and trying to grow and change. And I don't know about other people on the call, but I think it's hard in the world to be growing and changing around people. And it's just everyone there is for the same purpose. And so it's just so supportive of that. I would say other hallmarks was, I'm going to have to shout out, I met my partner. So that's, I mean, if anyone's going in single, it's a great dating service.
So it's not only transformed your professional life, but your personal life.
Yeah, of course. And then I think feeling the like truly professionally, I came in with a level of, I wasn't very confident. I was nervous. I was frustrated. I think I wouldn't use the word naive, but I was frustrated about the way that the world was working. And I came out of it just feeling so empowered. And I don't know that there was any individual class or individual experience that got me there. But I know, like, my friends and my family that knew me before coming out of the program, they're like, you're just different. You walk through the world with a bit more confidence. And I don't think that's cocky MBA confidence. I think that's investment in yourself and just sort of that experience coming out of it and knowing, what I want to do in the world and how I want to make impact.
I'll say it again. That's something I always say. The most generous gift you can give yourself is a gift of a friend. The second most generous gift you can give yourself is basically investing in who you are and who you want to become. And that talks about the value of an MBA experience. Now, Guy, what are the 3 hallmark things that you take away from your MBA experience at Ross?
It is very hard not to say the people first. But I will expand a little bit to, like, not only people, but the experiences you go through, different experiences, right? I've never shared a home with 5 other people before, and it was awesome. They are literally my best friends here in the US today. And just because it was such an intense period and we shared so many things. In Brazil, for some reason, we don't have a big Indian community, people from India, right? And so I was never exposed to that culture. So to be able to have so many classmates from India and go to Diwali and dance their dance, right, and eat their food. I'm giving one example, but that is from a lot of other cultures. And we as Brazilians, we did that too with barbecue, right? I had the opportunity to play tennis with the university people, with the undergrad. So it's just so many experiences that I never thought I could have. I thought theoretically you're just going to take classes, right? But it's so much more than that. Or either going to a party and taking a picture with Diana, with me, with a long blonde wig as a 6'7" blonde with the high heels, and I have that picture still. So those experiences form you, right? And you look back and you say, this is awesome. I would also point out, it is very hard not to think about classes that I really wish I could take, right? Again, as an engineer undergrad, I dreamt with the time that when I would go to a classroom and I liked what I was studying. And I love going to the classroom and studying strategy, right? Or marketing, or going to one of the best, or if not the best, information school in the country and study Python with the Pope of Python, Dr. Chuck Severance. So it's just so transformative there, the experience there. And in talking about leadership, I think the third thing I would point out is I participated on Story Lab. I think Diana mentioned this, and in passing, it's organized by the Sanger Leadership Center. So it's basically a program where you go upstage in front of 400, 500 people and tell a story of your life for 10 minutes. It's kind of a TEDx talk. That was
a great way to know who your classmates are and the diversity of experiences they bring into the program. Diana, what advice do you have for prospects in terms of aligning their passions and values with their career aspirations and finding the right program for them in the process?
Yeah, I think one thing, John, that students don't fully understand, especially in the prospective student stage, is that post-MBA jobs are more similar than they are different. Right? So post-MBA jobs, whether you go into banking, whether you go into consulting, whether you go into tech, there's 70+% of those jobs that are pretty darn similar. That's why you can take, this MBA experience and go into this diversity of places. And so it does take some exploration because, what is the difference between a tech product manager and a management consultant in investment banking and a brand manager? I mean, at the core, you're going to need the strategy, the leadership, the data and analytics experience, the visioning and the ability to influence others. All of those are common to all of those jobs. And so I think now, as you're thinking about schools, if you're looking to apply this fall, there's a couple different things that I think you can do. One, I usually tell prospective students to write down what they're really energized by currently, right? When you get really excited to do something, what's happening in that moment? What's happening around you? Are you working with other people? Are you working by yourself? And it may be that you're not doing what you love to do much of the time. Maybe it's only 5% of the time. And that's why you're looking to get the MBA to expand what you love to do. What you're driven by and what you love to do is not going to change because of the MBA, but what you're going to get is this toolkit that goes around it and broader exposure to the ways that you can apply the things that you love to do. And so if you're not clear on what makes you you, and what are the things that you're driven by, and what are the skills that you like to engage, though that's really important to be able to do now. You don't need to wait to do that. But we have over 300 student ambassadors on our webpage, and you can filter by their backgrounds, their career interests, where they're from. And if you did nothing other than read their bios, you'd get a very good idea of who's at Michigan Ross. And the good news is that you can email them directly from that webpage and learn a little bit more about their career pursuits. I see that you are an engineer. I'm an engineer, and I see that you're pursuing this path. What are the things that you did at Ross along the way that helped to inform that trajectory and prepare you for that career path? So I would take a look at our student ambassadors. I would take a look at employment reports. This is perhaps one of the bigger misconceptions about Michigan Ross, is that people assume that if you come to school in Ann Arbor, that you will somehow be geographically limited in your outcomes. And nothing could be further from the truth. We send 60 to 70% of our class to the coasts or Chicago. And even though Chicago is the #1 metro, it's only maybe 18 to 20% of the class. 80% of the class goes someplace that's not Chicago, right? So you're talking about incredible geographic diversity, and the employment report is one way to see that geographic diversity. The other fun fact is that New York is by far the #1 metro from which we get inbound students every year, by far. DC's #2, Chicago's #3, right? But so people are truly not from Michigan. They're coming from all these different places, and they're going to all these different places, which means you are going to have a great network wherever you go, which is why we say go blue, go anywhere. So even as your career evolves, you're going to have this really geographically diverse network and professionally diverse network there to support you. But it starts with you knowing you and what you're driven by. And I think that'll come up as you start to write your career-focused essays as well.
Now, Diana, how can students get in touch with you or your team if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah. So, we do weekly office hours. I would say the office hours by far, and I'm happy to put a link in the chat here, are a great opportunity to drop in. So what happens is you come into the Zoom, you are placed into a breakout room with an admissions officer, and you can ask whatever questions you want. And even if you're somebody who right now is thinking, I'm not quite sure I have all my questions formulated, first and foremost, I would say, jump in, right? Be a part of this, engage, start to absorb. But I think you'll find benefit just by hearing the other questions that students are asking as well, and some of the answers to those questions. So, you're certainly welcome to get a hold of us and our student ambassadors directly. But more importantly, I would say we have a ton of events coming up, many that are virtual and accessible, as well as a lot of digital content, like a number of career webinars where we spend a whole hour talking about why Ross for healthcare, why Ross for sustainability, why Ross for consulting, tech, finance, marketing, and more. So there's tons of things you can do just from your own living room. And then once you absorb all that, if you continue to have questions, you're always welcome to reach out to us. We want to get you the right information and in touch with the right people.
Terrific. There are plenty of starting points there. Hey, thank you so much. I think we had a really valuable half hour, packed a lot into it. Guy and Madeline, a pleasure to meet both of you. Great success on the rest of your careers. And Diana, as always, it's always pleasant to talk to you and connect. Thank you so much. All right, everybody out there. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. You've been watching
Thanks, y'all.
Circle and our focus on the Michigan Ross MBA experience. Thanks for joining.